Alright guys, and welcome back to the second part of our end of season review. I'm with Tom outside St Mary's. So we've just talked about obviously losing at home to West Ham and City at the end of the calendar year, and then we're given probably one of the hardest games on paper of the league. We're going away to Chelsea. At this point they haven't been fantastic over the festive period, but for me, one of the best defensive performances under Hasenhüttl, well, for the season really. 0-0.
Yeah, he brought Angus Gunn in, which was a big call, for especially at Stamford Bridge. And I think it was a big call around because Redmond was saved, Vestergaard was saved, so they were all fresh coming into the game. I think that had a massive impact because Chelsea had to play their best team games before that. And so, yeah, it was a massive point. I think that was a pivotal result in our season.
Yeah, I think definitely. Obviously, we weren't going to score. We didn't look like we were going to score, but Gunn made a really good save against Hazard. His distribution was fantastic. I mean, the chant, less memorable. I think, obviously, the fact that that went viral was pretty appalling. But we now have the FA Cup, Derby, away. Doing all right in the Championship under Frank Lampard, pushing for the playoffs. Obviously, inevitably, they've done fantastically well. That performance against Leeds the other night was fantastic. But you think, if you get yourself 2-0 up, Redmond gets both goals. You think, surely in the next round, we're going to get Accrington Stanley. I mean, I honestly, I think that game, I was lost for words as well, because it was another game where we lost a 2-0 lead.
I couldn't believe I was there as well. I couldn't believe it. He ran the changes a little bit, but he still put ward-prowse played. I think Redmond obviously played some strong players, but it's just another one of them games where we just lost a lead. And
well, to be honest, I think we were lucky not to lose it at the end. I think Marriott had a really good chance, but then poor performances in the cup. Obviously, we lose the replay, 2-0 up again, lose a 2-2 lead, 2-0 lead. Obviously lose on penalties either side of some really good performances in the Premier League. First off, I think it was Leicester away. I mean, another really good defensive performance. Obviously, we were a little bit worried that Valerie had been sent off. At that point, we were 1-0 up. It's the beginning of ward-prowse's fantastic form. Valerie sent off with what, 60 minutes to go, 50 minutes to go. The game, we're thinking, for God's sake, Shane Long goes up the other end, chips Michael to an extent. Really good finish. And we're 2-0 up away at Leicester, a ground where we just never score.
I've never been more worried in the game. Like having to hold on for 60 minutes with 10 men, attack after attack after attack. They scored early in the second half.
The fingernails wouldn't have survived, would they?
They didn't. Yeah, the fans were brilliant that day as well. We just somehow held on, and that was a big win because Ralph knew at that time that if we can play like that, then we're going to be fine. Yeah,
and I think, well, we obviously knew that what he was doing was very special, like a lot better than what a couple of previous managers who don't need to be named were doing. But obviously, like I said, we got knocked out of the cup in the replay. But then another really good performances in the Premier League, especially at home, which we hadn't seen for ages. And really, obviously, it was against Everton. We won that one 2-1 as well. Shouldn't have been nervy at the end. The way we played, honestly, they were shocking at the end of the day. I think they're probably the worst team to come here this season. We should have probably spanked them 3 or 4-0. Obviously, we didn't take enough chances. Pickford made a few good saves. But at that point, it's back-to-back wins again in the league, something we haven't seen for ages. And at that point, have you got a lot more confidence?
I had a lot of confidence because the games after, I think we had something like Palace, Burnley and Cardiff in a row. So I was really confident. Beating Everton and Leicester in a row was massive because they were playing quite well at that time. So it was really big, 2 big wins. Yeah.
Well, I think obviously we had the home game after that against Palace. I think if you'd said 7 points from Leicester away, Everton at home, and then Palace at home as well, obviously that's solid, which we got. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. Should have won at Burnley. Obviously, as we go into February, 1-0 up for quite a while. It was a penalty, probably the beginning of the Jack Stevens his handball for the penalty. 1-1 at Burnley, it's not a bad result. They were also high up in the form table at the time. I think it's the game after that really sort of brought the worry back to St Mary's. Cardiff, obviously, they won the game. Let's be honest. Let's sort of talk facts straight away. They won the game. It looked like we'd gotten a point. I think first half I didn't think we were actually that poor. I just didn't think we were looking like we were going to put the ball in the back of the net. Obviously, they scored from a corner, second half, and they're 1-0 up for the majority of that half. And we think, oh, for God's sake, they're going to overtake us. This is like back to square one. But then, the unlikely hero, at the back post, with a pretty good finish, Jack Stevens, 1-1. We're thinking, okay, fine, we'll take it. It's not the best result on paper, but we were going to lose the game. It's another point. They're not going to overtake us. from zero, honestly, I think this is the perfect definition of from hero to zero, because he's just, well, I don't even want to explain it, but yeah, Cardiff score from a Jack Stevens mistake, fantastic. We lose 2-1. Cardiff do the double over us, relegated Cardiff, that is. Yeah, at that point, I think honestly, I think I kicked a chair for the first time in ages that game, and then we go to Arsenal. Didn't really expect anything from that. Second half was all right. Defensively looked all right. Bednarek, another good game. Stevens, another poor one. Yeah, honestly, I think at that point I was still worried because Fulham at home was the big one. You know, if we didn't win that, I would have been worried. I would have been very worried and concerned for our state in sort of staying up in the Prem. I think we were very lucky at how poor Fulham were. Actually, I say Everton were the worst team to come in. I think Fulham probably were. They probably beat them in that. 2-0 win. Romeo gets the goal. Ward-Prowse continues his fantastic scoring run. Was that his 4th or the 5th in however many games? You know what? I think after that point, I was like, fine. We've beaten probably the worst team in the league. They're pretty much down now. That's probably one team to go. Actually, no, that's probably the second team to go because Huddersfield were also abysmal. And then we're thinking it's probably a 3-horse race between a 4-horse even, between us, Burnley, Cardiff and Brighton. Obviously, Burnley managed to pull themselves away. We did as well, luckily. But we go into March in relatively decent form. I think March was quite a memorable month, actually, because we got the two biggest wins of the season. That one against Spurs, where obviously not good enough in the first half. Yeah, we can talk about that. But the comeback, well, I had not heard St Mary's that loud for a very long time. When Ward-Prowse scored that free kick, I'll tell you what, I was in the Itchin and we had a crush. Like, a crush in the Itchin. Do you know what I mean? It's like unheard of. Yeah. Unheard of. Yeah, fantastic. We never beat Tottenham. We're famous for not beating Tottenham, especially at home. And then, who else did we have around that time?
We were supposed to have Watford, but that got cancelled, didn't it?
Watford game got cancelled. Yeah, we had a really long break, and then we go to Brighton. And I think if we'd won that game, obviously we did, pretty much safe. Brighton had dropped off a little bit. Performances weren't good enough at home. They weren't scoring. PM Højbjerg, that man again. I think that was really the best day of this. For me, probably the best away game of the season. I think safety looks pretty much dead on then. Obviously, we couldn't say that because we still had 5-6 games more to go. But for me, I don't know about you, Tom, but it was just refreshing to be winning football matches again. You know what? And I remember the performance away at Brighton in the league last year, 1-1. We just weren't good enough on the day. You know, I think the contrast was magnificent. Yes, that was under Pellegrino. We had Hughes since then, but the contrast was magnificent. We sort of kept them out for the majority of the game. Ourselves didn't really look that much like scoring, except for the Højbjerg chance, which obviously we took. What was it, 36 odd points at that point? I mean, sure, like, we felt we were safe. We knew it, didn't we?
Yeah, that was a big month. We didn't lose, obviously. Lost to beat Tottenham, Brighton. The Brighton was massive, obviously. 3,000 Saints fans in South Coast, further down the South Coast. Højbjerg, the man again. Nice pass from Redmond. And at that point, I knew that it was all going to be fine.
Yeah, and then, okay, the end of the season wasn't amazing. We had that defeat at home to Liverpool, where, for me, I think we put in a really good shift. Obviously, took the lead through Shane Long, the beginning of his really good scoring run. Meaning he's an asset for us next season. I mean, you wouldn't have said that, would you? And then the winner at home to Wolves was cracking. Like, that was fantastic. Obviously, definitely deserved that. Wolves weren't really good on the day. Could have scored more, to be honest. Josh Sims looked impressive. Should have scored. Danny Ings looked impressive. Should have scored as well. Redmond masterclass. I mean, it was pretty much standard Saints under Hasenhüttl in that game for me, and what really we can be next season on a more consistent basis. After that, though, I think this is what we need to address. For me, not good enough. I think partly because we were on the beach. We go up to Newcastle. Safety hasn't been confirmed. But I was honest. For me, I was confident. Newcastle had good form at St James Park. Had won a load of their home games that season, especially Man City. Come back against Everton near that point. I just didn't expect us to be that bad, in all honesty. And for the longest away trip of the season, the fans weren't really sort of catered for in that game.
No, I think we got a bit of luck. I think Vestergaard and Valo ruled out quite late for that game, which meant he had to change the system up a little bit. Ward-Prowse, was it right back?
Absolutely skins, mate.
It was ridiculous. Obviously changed it half time. Lamela came on, scored. Thought for a little while, can we nick a point? And then Yeah, Perez got a hat-trick. How did Jose Perez get a hat-trick against us? Like,
Yeah, well, look, at the end of the day, it was probably one of the worst performances under Hasenhuttl, if not the worst. We go into Bournemouth thinking, look, it'd be really nice. Actually, no, we didn't even. We had Watford after that.
Yeah.
Watford after that. You know what? I didn't expect anything from that one. Fantastic performance once again. A really good reaction. And a bit of history as well. 7.69 seconds. I mean, what can you do in 7.69 seconds? Can't even make a cup of tea in 7.69 seconds. Honestly, I mean, in that way, it was, couldn't believe it really. Obviously, Watford equalised at the end of it. Is what it is. Another good point. We go at home to Bournemouth. Really on paper should have beaten them. They've been on the beach for time. But again, defensively, without Vestergaard, I thought we would look really shaky, and that sort of epitomises why Vestergaard is actually, for me, I know Bednarek's gotten a lot of praise and deservedly so, but for me, I actually think he's our best centre-back. Now, say what you like about that in the comments, obviously, but I think the fact that we were missing him, and yes, we had to have Jack Stevens in there, even missing Yoshida didn't help. But yeah, we started really well. Bournemouth made a change, brought Fraser on for one of their centre-backs or full-backs or whoever it was, and they tore us apart.
That counter-attack from us was pathetic. I still don't know how they scored that. Bournemouth, they could have even won it at the end, couldn't they, with Wilson? So
He should have had a hat-trick, mate.
yeah.
But look, I was disappointed that day only because not enough fans stayed, and that's been a problem that needs to be addressed by the fans all season. Yes, you say, well, we pay our money. If the club don't sort of show us the performance, or the team even don't show us the performance, then we'll leave. But we confirmed safety and no one's around. Honestly, St Mary's was dead. And you got the players on the pitch, and even Hasenhuttl addressed it. You know, he said, look, we need to be supporting the team. And the Cardiff result where they lost at Fulham, that came through the tannoy. Everyone cheered, all 1,000 people that were there. I was a bit gutted about that. But then, honestly, okay, yes, we should have won it, but we move on. The final couple of performances, you know, when they're not against top six sides either. You know, that was our last home game. West Ham, we knew we were going to rotate. Forster comes in, not good enough. Clear to see that he's going to be off in the summer or doesn't get a chance. Elianusi, again, awful. And we get to the last game of the season. Huddersfield, worst team in the league, one of the worst teams in Premier League history. I mean, it was inevitable that we were going to draw that, wasn't it?
That's such a Saints thing to do. Redmond obviously got a really good goal. And then, I like Gunn, but obviously,
Deserved player of the season for you, Redmond?
I think so, yeah. It's close to him and Højbjerg, I think. Højbjerg let himself down a bit with the 2 red cards. But Redmond, I think it's 8 goals, 5 assists, something like that. And
9 goals and 6, mate, after that, yeah.
6, yeah. So it's just, he's been a transformed player, and I fully deserved it.
Right, he needs to look for double digits next season. Everyone was on the beach. Even Ralph admitted that he was very gutted. I mean, you look at how he reacts in the end of season sort of lap appreciation. If you go watch that on Southampton's YouTube, he looked furious. I mean, he said in his press conference, look, I've got a very clear image of the team I want to play next season. And I think it probably will end up being sort of built around Redmond, Ward-Prowse, Højbjerg, maybe Vestergaard and Bednarek. You could argue Valerie as well, Gunn in goal. I mean, I think he knows his key players now, which is important. And I think for ages he's known the team that he wants, or the players that he wants to go for, especially the positions. So obviously we didn't win that one. If we had, we would have finished 15th, an extra 2 million of prize money. It's not the end of the world. We've stayed up, obviously 2 leagues above Portsmouth. Well done, boys, for doing that one. Final opinion on this season. Is it a successful one? We've got more points than last year. Obviously last year was dreadful, but we haven't hit the 40-point mark.
Yeah, that's a real frustration for me. I think, given where we were in December, you've got to be happy with it. But if it starts season, if you had told me, we're going to finish 16th with the amount of points, I wouldn't have been happy. And we can't have another season next year of just about staying up.
I think that's the important bit. We cannot be fighting relegation next season again. For me, this is the most important summer for the club in a decade. Honestly, we need to push on now because we've got one of the most exciting managers in Europe for me. Honestly, there's no reason why. Well, let me say that again. There was no wonder why he was linked with the Bayern Munich job, and he was so humble to say, I'm not ready for it. It was a 2.5-year contract he signed. He's done half the year. I think we'll be lucky to see him for another 2 seasons full. But for you, what is it that we need to be looking at next season? What do we need to do? Is it in the transfer window with the hierarchy? Whatever. What do we need to do on the pitch next season to sort of achieve that sort of top 12, top 10 finish that we deserve, really?
I think there's got to be a massive clear out at the club. A lot of the loan players won't come back. Buffal will be interested to see what he does. But I think we need a striker, centre back. I'd tempted to say a midfielder, like sort of Romero role, because if he gets injured, we haven't really got anyone that can fill that. Maybe Slattery, but yeah, I think next year we just got to hit the ground running, and hopefully the fixtures are kind at the start, and we can get off to a good start.
To be honest, mate, the way the last couple of seasons we've had generous fixtures and we've been shite. So look, at the end of the day, we've got a chance now to push on. It's a good opportunity. Like I say, we've got one of the most exciting managers in Europe. If you can hear me with that bloody train. Thank you very much for the support this season, guys. If you have enjoyed this, remember to like, comment your overall thoughts on the season. Have you been sort of not disappointed or pleased? Like, where are you on the season? What's your overriding opinion? What do we need to do in the summer to be a lot better next year? Remember to subscribe if you haven't yet already, and we will see you very soon.